Hello, hello. This is Josh with the Synchronized Universe coming at you from my morning before work time. Call it my chill time, my mental preparation for, for going to work. Work sucks sometimes. But hope everybody's doing well. I'm actually slightly irritated because I've recorded a couple different podcasts and apparently they were not saved properly. But it's all good nonetheless. I'm using platform. Maybe I need to take more time to learn how to use it properly. I guess maybe I don't know. A little irritating that they're not saved because I had a couple of them. Anyway, just wanted to get on, give some updates. I've been slacking. Been dealing with a lot of stress. Stress gets you down, right? It happens. Sometimes you don't want to do anything. But I've done a lot of soul searching as of lately. Done a lot of personal work. Like honestly, I'm feeling better the past week than I have in quite a long time, and it's something to be celebrated. Um, there's just lots of things in the world and lots of things going on with your life that you have to start to realize most of are your own problems, like your own thoughts, your own stuff is what's killing you. Like, if you take all those negative thoughts, push them out of your mind, what are you left with? You're just left with you. Like, the negative thoughts, the negative feelings about yourself aren't you at all. That's your whatever, your trauma speaking, your dark side, whatever you want to call it, but it's not real. Like none of that matters. Like you're you're living in a world of 7 billion people. Those negative thoughts about yourself don't matter. People's opinions of you don't matter. None of it does. Because ultimately you are the one driving this car, if you will, as a metaphor. You're the one driving the car. And recently I had an experience, in meditation. I've been reading the book by Joseph Campbell, A Hero with a Thousand Faces. I've, been poring over a lot of like mystical religion stuff. And ultimately, I believe, we're here to play a part. You're here to play out this part in your life. If you can identify your greatest flaws, which most people do, if you've ever done any inward work, you're here to conquer those flaws and do something different. At any point in time, you could decide, hey, I'm going to be different. I'm going to do different. That's why when we're as a society so focused on something somebody said 10 years ago, it's the most ridiculous thing in the world because that doesn't matter. 10 years ago doesn't matter. It doesn't. It only exists in your mind. I mean, yes, we have records of it, right? But if you were to not think about that or, it doesn't exist. But the fact is, like, say you had a traumatic experience and, it's been proven that these stress chemicals can be turned on by thought alone. 100% proven scientifically. So you take your mind and think back to that moment. Your mind believes you're there. It believes you're in that moment. So it's activating all these stress chemicals in the body and it's making you sick. The fact is, like, you don't have to do that. The stuff is in the past. You have to rise above it. You have to heal from it. And again, just because you don't think about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist inside your body. Like if you haven't properly dealt with your trauma, it's going to manifest itself in your life in all kinds of ways, usually through negative habits. All of us know what negative habits are if you're paying attention. If you're not, you're still a non-player character in this world and you haven't woke up yet. NPC, it's video game talk for those that don't know. Um, so that's it's super important. Like it's super super important to deal with trauma, and there's all kinds of ways. I found out watching a show on Apple TV called Shrinking, and one of the characters played by Harrison Ford is talks about how you sit down for 15 minutes, listen to the saddest song you can think of, and literally let it all out. Cry, scream into a pillow for 15 minutes, thinking about that subject that destroys you. And, do it as many times as it takes. But what you're doing is you're releasing that heavy emotional pain and you feel instantly lighter. Like you start to realize that these emotions are manifesting in your life in different ways. Again, through habits, through all kinds of things. You could have a spending habit, eating habit. There's all kinds of ways that trauma can manifest in your body. And it's important to deal with it. Um, that was the part I wanted to discuss mainly. And then the other part of my podcast, I've been reading, we've been seeing a lot of like UFO stuff in the news, and like one of these posts that came on across on Facebook was talking about, it was Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a pretty prominent figure in the science world, and I've watched some of his documentaries, and he has a very biased view on the universe. Like a lot of scientists do, and he discount like laughs at the idea of extraterrestrial life or beings outside us. And his little post said, just because we don't know how the ancient peoples built something like the pyramids doesn't mean it was built by aliens. And I find that to be, it's silly to me because as a scientist minded person or science minded person, you have to open yourself up to the possibilities that anything like that could be possible. If you don't, then what are you doing as a scientist? Like, you have to not discount the possibilities that anything like that. I was reading through the comments, and it always makes me laugh, because it shows how closed-minded people in the scientific community can be, because they wait for these mainstream science sources to tell them, the answer. When if you look into, the non-university backed studies or the non-university backed scientists that are doing it with their own money, like, you start to see that there is so much bigger picture than what we've been given. If you look at the pyramids in themselves, they are a mathematical impossibility. The Great Pyramid specifically. It is not just, that we don't necessarily know how they built, but like they're literally perfect geometrically. Like we're talking, if this is stuff that nobody ever tells you. Like on all sides of the base, it is not off level by more than a half inch. By today's standards, that is quite literally impossible. Like it's insane, and just stuff like that. It blows my mind because like science, as like these people are talking about. It's funny that we're trying to say now that we don't know how they were built, because when I was in school, we were taught, hey, they were built by Egyptians pulling these blocks on these rollers, and it was taught as a fact, taught as 100% fact. And you find out later when you do your own research that we don't actually know. They're just speculating that that's how it was done. And we're taught in school as it is an absolute fact. And when you're in school, they'll try to defend that, like, no, we're just teaching what we know. No, you look at the peer person teaching you as an authority figure. You take that as a fact. Just like how people take everything these pharmaceutical companies say as a fact. Despite the horrific reputation of all these companies. That's the kind of crap that be making me laugh in this world. Like, just because it comes from, a university backed source doesn't make it automatically fact. Like, if you start to think about and research all of the data that's come across in the lead, just even in the last 20 years, if you are a scientist backed by a university and you go out and do a study and say your findings contradict, say you're being sponsored by a Christian university, it contradicts some of the stuff that they believe in their worldview, you're not going to be allowed to publish that data. They won't allow it. There's been plenty of people who have whistleblowers have come forward and said, like, they can't do it because then they lose their funding. The people that are funding them won't allow that information to be posted. That is the key here, people. And when people say that there's no evidence of extraterrestrials interacting with humans, they have not done their research. Not one bit. Because every single ancient culture in the world has depictions, drawings, written records of them dealing with beings from beyond the stars. You can call them angels, you can call them whatever they want. The name changes, but the story stays the same. And we're talking cultures that should not have any link to each other, like South American, and then the like Egyptian area, or Europe continent, or South America. Like, how are they in any kind of connection? Like, that's the thing that trips me out is like they have the same stories regurgitated. The flood story. Do you have any idea how many different versions of the flood story there is all over the world? You know, like it's now recognized that actually happened. Um, and it's wild to me that people, like these prominent science figures, quote unquote. I'm gonna use the quotes, air quotes there, because it's not science to deny the possibility of anything. If you think that there's nothing else going on in this universe, you're blind. We are literally on a floating rock suspended in infinite nothingness, circling a giant ball of fire. Again, in the middle of an infinite nothingness. And you don't believe in magic and you don't believe in the possibility that there's other beings out there. And again, people look at aliens and they're like, oh, must be little green men that they're talking about. I disagree. I guarantee you that I bet you a lot of this solar system is populated with beings that look like us. I think our ancestors are 100% from the stars. And again, if you look at the Bible or any of these ancient texts from that regard, that they're speaking about beings from another planet, it starts to make a whole lot more sense. Heaven becomes space. Um, Elohim is gods. Gods came, they came from the sky. The Nephilim, translated in Hebrew, is actually those those who from heaven to earth came, is what the Nephilim stands for. We look at it as giants, and granted, yes, these beings, according to the Sumerian texts, were much larger than us, 12, 13 feet tall, but we're not talking like 50-foot giants that were eating humans. Like the Bible and these other written texts have, distorted the information purposely. Um, I've gone into this before on mine and my friend's podcast. We're talking about the Anunnaki here. So this is something I want to definitely go into on the next few podcasts that I do, because a lot of people don't know who they are. And it's important because this is probably the group that links all these ancient cultures together. They probably taught most of these people. Again, they are depicted not only in hieroglyphics, written records, stone monuments of them. There's a laundry list. And to think that we don't have any proof of extraterrestrials is silly, bro. Silly. And again, just because proof can't be found because people hide it when they do these investigations, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That's the thing. Like, people, we want all or nothing proof when the proof is all around you. You just have to open your mind. I would rather believe that we live in an infinite universe where there's infinite possibilities than a we are a random occurrence on a lifeless universe on a planet full of animals and water, and surrounding a big ball of fire. This is just a random thing. That's what regular people believe, regular scientists, regular atheist folks, that this is we're just an infinite chance. And then they'll go live their life as though, like, if you only have one life and nothing is going to happen after this, why the hell do you care about anything? Why are you worried about anything, bro? You should be enjoying every single second of your life as if, you weren't going to rot in the ground and nothing was going to happen. It's silly to me, man. Like, everybody's just scared to look at the big picture and be like, hey, yeah, I believe that there could be anything going on in the universe. Anything. I believe that the possibilities are quite literally endless. Anyway, this is Josh with the Synchronized Universe podcast. I appreciate y'all for listening to me ramble about nonsense and venting. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Many blessings, and shout out to my friend Alex.